What's up, everybody? Just wanted to hop on here this afternoon and get a quick recap in of today's action. If we start in a higher time frame, we can just look, right, pretty clean cut YouTube model, breaker formation. Right, we just trended lower all day, attacking sell side. So if we want to label that a higher time frame, you'll notice that the swing high that we form prior to the New York Open, right, midnight opening, we come up, create a swing high, play around that during London, but prior to New York, we actually come back up and run that. If you actually look, we return into this 15-minute inefficiency as well. So when we see this, and then this aggressive break lower through this low, right, that's kind of triggering at that point shorts. Bearish order flow, we would be expecting price to continue to deliver lower. Here on this 15, we don't really have anything. If we went down to the 5 though, you would actually see we got a quick YouTube model. So same low that gets broken. We can run this high here. So short-term high being cleared. Remember, we're also running a high here and returning into this inefficiency. So a lot of premiums. And then as we break lower, we create that fair value gap. Come up, institutional order flow intra-drill, just tap it barely. And from there, right off to the races. You see that we only came up this far into it because we were actually tapping this inversion as well, which was acting as our balanced price range. So although we do have all this 1 minute bearish fair value gap here, we only needed to return to the low of this bullish, right? As we break through with another, it becomes balanced. And now we can look for price to continue to deliver lower. As we now work down on these time frames, when we hopped on here prior to the 9:30 opening, let's kind of move these back. We were speaking about, right, we had looked at the higher time frame, but we were also speaking about, where's 9:30? So it was just before this down close candle. At this point, we had seen how price had been respecting all the premiums. So now that we've kind of done that higher time frame analysis, we understand we're already going to look for lower prices. We can just refine now to the 1 minute structure. And this is what we were doing this morning. When we had seen how price came back up into this fair value gap, right? This is now acting as our breaker here as well. So we're hitting that fair value gap, breaking structure again, right? This run up here, just returning into that volume imbalance. So we're respecting these premiums heading into 9:30. We had already cleared a set of relative equal highs. And now when 9:30 is coming along, you see that, right, we had already ran this low. So right before 9:30, we actually break and close below this low. And this is why we were looking for price to actually just move straight down. We'd said that maybe we would want to run this high. If we were going to create the Judas swing, it makes sense for price to try to run this high. But we were really leaning towards price taking out, right? This low here was our main focus, and this one as well. This fair value gap I'll show quickly is a 5 minute fair value gap. We had just highlighted this because this was the last discount on a 5 minute chart before this low. So if we can get through this 5 minute, we should have easy clearing into these lows as we saw. Clear that. As we move back to the 1 minute now, right, we wanted to see this low, and ultimately the swing low formed in London be taken as well. So we have this low, and then we have London swing low. Obviously at 9:30, we break straight down, right? We create the volume imbalance, hitting this candle's low, running lower, and now breaking this low. When we close underneath this low, we had said that this fair value gap here is what we would expect to hold price. Because if we're going to close underneath it, we would expect price to continue to reach for the actual low formed in London. And the most recent premium here should hold us, right? So we actually went short here. Stop was above just that fair value gap. And we got out at 5 handles. So we didn't really hold for too long, right? Just a quick 5 handle move. Obviously, we delivered a lot lower, and we did get another short we'll show earlier. But in the grand scheme of things, we're content with 5 handles. As we break lower, right, clearing now the actual London low and close aggressively underneath that again. Closing below those lows signifies that we want to continue lower, right? That's how we see that. So as we continue to do this, we're just looking for the most recent premiums to hold. In this case, we create now a volume imbalance, barely get up into it. Right, you can see price doesn't even want to return up into it. We try to create a volume imbalance, completely negate that, and keep on running for lows. At this point, we could check out the 15-minute. Because in the same aspect now, right, after we had cleared all these lows, we were just trying to see what other discounts we may hit. There's a 15-minute fair value gap here. If we can get under this 15-minute fair value gap, we would actually favor the daily consequent encroachment. So that was our main, right, biggest target. If we zoom into the daily, and we take a look at now this wick that we had here, we were running just the midpoint of that, right? That's consequent encroachment. That was our main target. So now as we zoom back into the 1 minute, that's what this, right, long line here is. So in the whole grand scheme of things, we were really looking for this to be hit. And you see how beautiful we delivered to that, consolidate. These are the longs we'll go over that we shared. But ultimately, we did end up getting low through that and attacking another sell side pool that we'll show here. As we continue to just run through the morning's action, we had spoke about this fair value gap here. Right, we had went short as we broke underneath. I'll go ahead and show you. We had one more higher time frame. So now here on the hourly chart, we were looking at this fair value gap here. Just so you can see what we're looking at. So as we first broke underneath, right, the consequent encroachment of this 1 hour. Don't get lost here. This is the 1 hour fair value gap. We'll just talk about it briefly. But as we close underneath that consequent encroachment, we would expect price to continue to trade lower. So we just use that midline here to get short. Right, stop was above the fair value gap. We get real close, and you saw that live this morning. Our stop was getting flirted with, but this huge candle saves us and delivers us into that consequent encroachment. At this point, we were really just sitting in here, right? We end up consolidating around that target because we had already moved so much and delivered into a higher time frame objective, right? So that higher time frame level is going to be a key level. Now, as we start to reverse and trend higher, this is where we'll see, right, we had shared those longs. So we were looking how price was just running lows, right, clearing a short-term low, clearing a short-term low. We have been running lower all morning, so at some point we can expect some type of retracement. But we were needing confirmation off of this level. The confirmation that we said would come in the form of, right, clearing this fair value gap and giving us just some type of bullish structure. That bullish structure comes here when we run this short-term low, this one as well. So we have short-term low cleared. We then created that market structure shift, right, aggressively breaking that and then leaving behind the fair value gap. We understand we're also using this because this is the most recent premium. So if we can get above it, we should have clear sailing. All right, we're going to move that for now. One thing I did want to mention, we were slightly worried about these equal lows. Right, because if we see this run lower, left equal lows here. We were able to trust this, however, because, right, we got confirmation above this, but also if we looked at NQ at the same time, NQ actually ran the low that was formed at 1014. Right, so if we were to compare the two, which actually we'll do that now. Here we are, right, so we have NQ on the right, ES on the left. At 1014 in NQ, we actually run, right, that low gets ran here at 1027. Whereas when compared to ES, equal lows. But seeing this and then NQ breaking structure as well, just gave us that confirmation, acted as a form of SMT. So we were able to go ahead and trust that hop and longs and take advantage. The first longs came inside of this fair value gap here. Just the most recent one. We did have a lower one that you'll see price traded into. At this point though, we were just getting the easiest opportunity to enter, right? So took the higher one. We were also using it because it was inside of this 1 minute bearish. So we were just trying to use that low as support, which ends up happening, right? You'll see that the wicks go into the lower fair value gap, but the bodies actually hold this one here, which was nice. From there, we just break structure, and now we have that bullish order flow being put in. Right, so our second entry came as we break above this, now creating a 1 minute inversion. We're also breaking above this, right? Creating two inversions. We like the higher one because notice, right, we have two fair value gaps. Breaking this aggressively, we were looking for price to just slightly return into a fair value gap and take off. So at this point, we weren't trying to see any deeper retracement because we had already spent so much time consolidating here. Right, once we break above this 1 minute, we'll confirm to look for those longs. and then breaking above this, that's what we actually use for entry. So the first entry that you saw, or the second one, excuse me, right? First one came here. Second one just came on this inversion level. So as this candle taps its consequent encroachment, holds it, we enter on the next candle. We were trying to see if price didn't want to give one more run lower into that, running this low. And we were going to pick up a few more positions, but ultimately we just ran from here, which was fun. Our target we spoke about was just this inefficiency. So on the run lower, right, the sell side part of the curve here, as we're selling off, this is really the only untouched inefficiency. We had this one here, which we took this position off at, but we had another one here, right? And that's just what we were aiming at. So we were able to catch that swing high beautifully. Look at that delivery, right? Beautiful precision there. And at this point, we gave a retracement just back into the inversion, into now this original 1 minute. So we can pull these out. And we got another leg higher, running out a high one more time before ultimately we got that reversal and just trended lower the rest of the afternoon. So the morning was really all we looked at. Right, we had spoke about potentially running back for lows if we can get back up into these higher time frame areas. And we can actually just go ahead and run through, right, kind of what happened as we headed into lunch and into the afternoon. Ultimately, we do really hold at this fair value gap. Right, we get above it briefly, returning into this one here. Ultimately, this one ends up holding all of the bodies, and then we break structure pretty aggressively. Right, and from here now, really we just continue to break down structure. So we can see how we form breaker blocks along the way. Right, a lot of premiums that get formed here. You can use breakers, just really any PD array. Right, we have fair value gaps that sure they get painted outside a little bit, but the highs still hold us. Right, so as we continue to break down, right, we can see that we're just respecting these levels. Right, bullish fair value gap turned inversion. So once we break below it here, right, it now acts as an inversion paired with the bearish. So if you understand what we're looking for, a lot of premiums in here can be used as price just continues to dig lower. It's not the cleanest delivery per se. As you see, we get a lot of deep retracements. So you'd have to hold through deep retracements, but price is trending lower, right? And you're able to really capture that. Ultimately, we take out the low formed here at 1026. So we take out that New York session low. Right, notice heading into that lunch hour, we wick it first, spend some time here, and then we really start to expand lower. This level here we'll talk about now. Right, if we go to an hourly, a daily chart. So on a daily chart, we have this cluster of daily lows, right? 1, 2 equal lows, and then a relative equal low here. We've been trending lower, obviously, right, aggressively, and we were looking to see if we couldn't clear out these lows. Well, honestly, I didn't think it happened today, but we were on board. So if price wanted to reach for it, we had it as an objective. Now we can go back to the lower time frame. So this level here, right, is now that daily equal lows. That's what this level is. I'm going to clear the consequent encroachment because this became our next target now. So once we clear this low, close below it, right, you'll see price just continues to deliver into this low. And ultimately, that's what we consolidate around. We've gapped now on this opening. It'll be interesting to see how we use this tomorrow. But we'll continue quickly on these lower time frames. Just pointing out potential setups here. So this setup's forming during the lunch hour, but we'll still look at it, right? It'll be helpful for us. As we clear this low, right, close below it, we'll kind of confirm to look for more lower prices showing that it's trending lower. What we can see here is, right, this original fair value gap here gets used, which is interesting. But disregarding that, say we're just looking at structure, right? What does this look like? High, low, higher high that gets broken, right? This becomes our breaker block. So if we go ahead and drag out those consecutive candles, right, once we close below it the first time, we can then expect price to use that as resistance. So we don't close below it here, close below it here for the first time, and then notice, right, how we use that level perfectly. Right, so after closing underneath this low as well, we close underneath that low, we come back up into it, and we can barely return into that breaker. So that'd be a tough opportunity, break lower. But now we like that volume imbalance a lot, right? So we come back up into the volume imbalance, break lower again, attacking this low. At this point, just returning now into fair value gaps. Right, so you can see how it's kind of messy delivery. We kind of call these those high resistance runs where it's a lot of up and down, but ultimately price is still respecting these premiums and it's delivering into our levels that we were looking for. Right, at this point here, we hadn't hit the equal lows. So as we break underneath this fair value gap, we would just look for this to hold, right? It comes up into it, wicks, holds it. This swing high stays in place, so it's protected. We make perfectly equal lows here first, notice that. So this retracement should be suspect anyway, right? If we're going to create perfectly equal lows at an already predetermined, right, area of liquidity on a daily chart, we would definitely look for those lows to get taken. So price revisits that fair value gap one more time, right? A lot of up and down in here. Rather ugly delivery as we say, but ultimately that objective gets met. We deliver into and through these equal lows. And from there on out, right, we did have price moving in here, but as you can see, pretty ugly, just chopping back and forth, right? You can do some kind of in the range trading, as we say, inter-range trading. So as we're running short-term lows, right, a nice one would have been here, low, high, lower, low, broken. Have a fair value gap that gets pulled up, right? You see how we respect that level. Like we say, ugly delivery, but ultimately, right, the high gets ran. Now after we clear this high, we get a quick, right, sell off lower into lows. So you'll see how no liquidity is necessarily safe. Right, we're running short-term highs. Running short-term highs here. Right, at the same time, clearing short-term lows at this. This is just what we call really ugly seek and destroy. Right, you wouldn't want to be really trying to trade up in here. But you see all the short-term lows, all the short-term highs that get interacted with. And right, we can continue to do this. Short-term low again gets taken. I think you guys get the message, right? Short-term low again. Really beat it in so you guys can see. Right, short-term high again. Right, this high as well. So back and forth. Look at all this liquidity, right? If anyone that went long, they're not safe, they're getting taken out. People trying to short, they're getting taken out. So this is just meant to frustrate people that don't necessarily understand what they're looking for. We've already delivered into the overall objective, which was that daily level here, right? So these daily equal lows. We've been trending, had a huge sell-off all day. So at this point, price is just consolidating. We'll go ahead and mention though, right, we did have this gap now, so this will definitely be interesting. We're gonna have to watch and see how price interacts with that. New day opening gaps we like to have if they're pretty significant, and this here, 6 handles. So we'll like to have this on. Going forward, right now, kind of the outlook. Say that we come back up into this new week opening gap and show signs of wanting to break structure again, lower. I would honestly continue to look and see if price wants to break down, right? We don't want to necessarily be calling tops and bottoms. So if price shows a willingness to reject off of here, we'll look for lower prices. On the flip side of that, right, just to kind of have and be prepared for both scenarios. Say that we blast back up and through this new week opening gap and show signs of finding support, then I like looking for this high potentially here. Right, so say if we got something where we hesitate but blast through this, right, and showing signs that we want to run higher, then I would look for this high to be taken, and from there we'd really have to reassess if we want to return back up into these swing highs or if price wants to break lower. Going forward though, we'll just have to wait and see. So we'll meet again tomorrow morning just before the equities open at 9:25. Until then, have a good night everybody, and we will talk tomorrow.